Welcome to One Good Password. In this lesson, you will learn what makes a strong password, and more importantly, you will learn how to make a strong password that you will be able to remember without writing it down. I've taught this method several times to various groups of computer users with different levels of computer experience. I encourage you to watch the recording one time all the way through, and then go back and watch it again. The second time you watch it, pause the recording and follow along with the instructions until you feel comfortable with the step you're working on. Then start where you left off and go to the next step. Take as much time as you need to feel confident on each step. By the end of the lesson, you will be able to confidently create a strong password that you will be able to remember without writing it down. Let's get started. Technology moves at a rapid pace, but there are still some things that are stuck in the last century. Computer scientists are busy trying to find more secure ways to identify ourselves to the things and sites we use. In spite of all their work, the username and password combination is still by far the most used method to sign in to a device, an application, or a website. A company called Splash Data releases an annual list of the most commonly used passwords. This information is from breach data, where databases of usernames and passwords have been leaked online. Do any of these passwords look familiar to you or similar to any passwords you use? Let's hope not. But if you've been trying to keep your passwords simple and easy to remember, yours may be on the longer list that Splash Data found. The problem with these passwords is that they are easy to remember, and there are so many people using the same passwords. Splash Data's list contained 5 million leaked passwords, and the number one password out of 5 million was 123456. Look at all the options we have for creating our passwords, and yet so many people use just a few. We have 26 capital letters, 26 small letters, 10 digits, and 33 of what we call special characters. That's a total of 95 unique characters to choose from. That may sound intimidating, but the more unique characters you introduce into your password, the more secure it will be. What makes a password strong or secure? Let's take a look. Security experts rarely agree on anything completely, but on this there are no dissenting opinions. A strong or secure password contains at least 8 characters, but every additional character adds more security. Experts agree that 15 is a really good number. A good password contains at least 1 capital or uppercase letter, and at least 1 small or lowercase letter, at least 1 digit from 0 to 9, or from 1 to 0 if you're reading across the top of your keyboard, and at least 1 of those special characters. Obviously, you will be using more than one of each of these elements because there are only 4 types of characters. And they should look random, even if they aren't completely random. A password generating program will produce a random set of characters, but our process will be what we call pseudo-random. It will look random, but it won't be. This password meets all the criteria for a strong password except for one, random or pseudo-random. A human trying to guess this password would take a long time, but a password cracking program would be able to figure it out much more quickly than it would a random set of characters. A human can look at this and see Stevie, and someone using social engineering tactics could figure out if you're likely to use your kids' names or your pets' names as passwords. Let's look at why longer passwords are stronger and why the more elements you use, the stronger they get. In the first position, there are 95 possible choices. In the second position, there are 95 choices. In the third position, there are 95 choices. On to the end of your password. A 1-character password has 95 possibilities. If you have a 10-character password, the number of possible combinations is 95 to the 10th power. If you have an 11-character password, the number of combinations is 95 to the 11th power. The password you're looking at is a 12-character password. A cracking program would have to find the correct combination out of 540 sextillion, 360 quintillion, 87 quadrillion, 662 trillion, 636 billion, 962,890,625 possibilities. Obviously, a human could never do it, and even software would take years to solve the password. Let's take a look at the steps we're going to be using to create your strong password. Step 1 is to choose a sentence to base your password on. Step 2 is to type the full sentence several times until you know the sentence by heart and can say it without hesitation. Step 3 is to reduce the sentence to initial letters. Step 4 is to substitute special characters for some of the letters. Step 5 is to verify that all the strength criteria are met: uppercase letter, lowercase letter, number, special character, and a random look. If not, go back through step 4 again. Step 6 is to practice typing the word while saying the sentence. And step 7 is to commit it to memory. Your password is going to begin with a sentence that you can remember word for word. It could be a line from a song you like. It could be a line from a book. Bible verses are good because if you use the book, chapter, and verse, you already have numerical characters. If you want to use scripture verses, you want to choose one that you can recite exactly the same every time. If it's one you tend to paraphrase, even if it means the same thing, it's not going to work for this process. I picked an opening line from a song that everyone from my generation can sing all the way through. As you go through this process, you may find that some of the lines you want to use don't translate well into this process. There may not be enough transposable characters, and you'll see where that comes into play in just a few minutes. You'll see what I mean if you encounter it. I had to try several different songs before I found one that would work well. You don't need to buy a piece of software to do this. I use Microsoft Office products extensively, so I have Word and Excel installed on my computer, and I'm going to be doing the demonstration in Word. Excel will work just fine, or any other word processing program like one from LibreOffice or OpenOffice will work. Pages and Numbers for Mac will also work fine. But if you don't have those and don't want to get them, a simple text editor like Notepad for Windows, Text Editor for Mac, gedit for Linux, or any other text editor will do everything this system requires. We're going to type this sentence several times just to get used to the sentence. You can see while I was doing this that I had trouble catching that capital C. Pay attention to little things like that if you have trouble typing it. You will have to pay attention when you're typing the actual password. Continue typing the sentence until you feel very familiar with the sentence itself. You will be using this sentence to type the password, the completed password. Now we're going to reduce this sentence to its initial letters, leaving in any special characters. You don't have to do this several times. Once is enough because we're not keeping this. It's just an intermediate step. In this step, you're going to look for some elements in the letters you typed and see how you can change some of them to special characters. Some will look natural, like using the $ in place of an S, but you can also look at the words themselves. If you have the word and, go ahead and use the ampersand sign. If you have the word at, use the at symbol. In this step, every L and every I became a numeral 1, so I don't have to remember which was which. I used the at symbol where the A was. I kept the question marks and the comma. In the place of an E, I used a 3, and I kept the exclamation mark. You may encounter some sites that don't allow certain special characters, but that should be presented to you as an alert if your password is not accepted, and you may have to adjust accordingly. Here's your new password. It has all the elements of a good, strong password, although at this point you probably couldn't remember it without writing it down. It's also not completely random because we used a system to create it, but it's going to be reasonably secure unless you're known for going around singing the song that you're basing your password on. Because you still haven't memorized it yet, we're not done here. Let's work this a little more. Now we have the password, and we need to get to a point where we can type it without looking at it. Just say the sentence typing each element. Remember, I used the numeral 1 for each I and L, and this threw me off for a few rounds. It's important to remember that even if a numeral 1 looks exactly like a small L in certain fonts, they are two completely different characters, and if you've set your password using a numeral 1, a lowercase l is not going to let you in. If this were a password I was going to be using, I would either have to keep working on this until I could remember to use a numeral 1 for that L, or I would have to abandon this sentence and start over. If you find that you simply cannot make that transition from one of the words in the sentence you've selected to a character you chose for that word, you'll have to choose a different character or choose a different sentence. Now that we've gone through the whole process, let's go back and look at the steps again. Step 1 is to choose a sentence to base your password on. Step 2 is to type the full sentence several times until you know the sentence by heart and can say it without hesitation. Step 3 is to reduce the sentence to initial letters. Step 4 is to substitute special characters for some of the letters. Step 5 is to verify that all the strength criteria are met: uppercase letter, lowercase letter, number, special character, and a random look. If not, go back through step 4 again. Step 6 is to practice typing the password while saying the sentence. And step 7 is to commit it to memory. Now you have a great password. It's really strong, and it's not going to be guessed by a human, and it's not going to be easy for software to crack. And you may be tempted to make this your go-to password and use it everywhere. That is a really bad idea. Having a strong password is something you can do, but unfortunately, you don't have any control over the security of the places you use your passwords. If a thief manages to break into a website and steal a database of passwords, they will try to use those username and password combinations at other sites. If you use the same username and password combination at your bank that you use at a social media site, and the social media site has a password theft, the thief has your bank login information. He still doesn't know which bank you use yet, but if he wants to find out, he'll start at the top of the list of banks that have websites and just start working his way down. So don't reuse passwords in different places. Do you have to create passwords like this for everywhere you visit on the web? How will you possibly remember them? A password manager allows you to store all your great passwords that are long and strong without having to remember them. A full tutorial on using a password manager is beyond the scope of this lesson, but it's something you may want to look into. You can use that one password you can remember without writing down to access the password manager. You can think of a password manager like a fortress, holding all the passwords you need to get to the places you want to go, and your password that you create and remember is the key to that fortress. How do you get a password manager? There are many very good password managers, and many are free to use, and some have a free tier with premium services at a fee-based tier. Most will also generate a random password for you, and they will let you set criteria for the password: how long, what elements to include, such as capital letters, small letters, numbers, and special characters. Most store your password in an encrypted database on their servers so that you can get to them anywhere you have access to the internet. And most also have mobile apps. Remember that creating a great password doesn't mean it should be used in a bunch of different places. Even if you use a password manager, you will need at least one password that you can remember without writing it down, but is still hard to guess, because you have to secure entry to the password manager, and you have to be able to get into the password manager yourself. Thanks for watching One Good Password. If you still don't feel confident about creating a password that you can remember without writing it down, go back through the steps again. Pause the presentation and take your time with each step. I know you'll find it to be an effective method of creating one good password.